Hey, listener, Sourdough here. Today's a cool episode because we got Jeff Tremaine. He's going to hang out and chat for a while. You know Jeff. You know his work. He is famous for the Jackass series on MTV, as well as the movies. And he's got a new movie coming out, The Dirt, on Netflix about Motley Crue, based on the book by the same title. Be sure to check it out. It comes out March 22nd. Jeff's hilarious. He's a great guest, so enjoy the show.
Hello, this is Siri, and you're listening to my favorite podcast, Not Real Art. I live for this shit cause it's totally lit.
So welcome to Not Real Art, Siri's favorite creative culture podcast. Jeff, did you know that? Did you know that we are Siri's favorite creative culture podcast?
I did not know that.
You did not know that?
I'm coming in
Now
blind.
you know.
I'm walking into this completely blind.
Oh, good. That's the way we like it. See, we can fool you because you don't know any better. Do you listen to podcasts?
I don't very often. I like them when I do. It's not part of my rhythm in life.
Right.
I did a little more when I was, my wife is a podcaster and she's way into it. And she turns me on to the good ones. You know, if I do find one I like, I'll binge it. But in general, it's just not, I'm sort of a Luddite. Like I don't.
Oh, good for you, actually. Good for you. So are you addicted to the smartphone or no?
I am addicted to my smartphone. Yes, unfortunately. And I think it's blown my eyes out.
Oh, really?
But not.
Those beautiful blue eyes of yours.
I don't. Oh, God damn! I just went blind like recently. Not blind.
Oh, your eyes finally changed. My eyes started to turn as well. I'm 48.
Mine went when I was probably 49.
Okay.
So overnight. It seemed like it was overnight. I don't need a prescription still. I just need big magnifying readers for close-up stuff.
Right.
But I think the phone accelerated that whole thing. Maybe not. But
so when you're stuck on the 405, what are you listening to?
Mostly music. Music's my thing.
What are you listening to right now?
Well, I've got Sirius XM, so I have like the old school hip hop station. They just changed the name of that. I think it's
was it Fly or
Backspin?
Backspin, right? Okay, because there's Rock the Bells.
Now it's Rock the Bells.
Okay,
Backspin used to be Backspin. Now it's Rock the Bells.
Got it.
And then
okay.
I've got Ozzy's Boneyard.
Of course. Do you know Big Dave?
No.
Ozzy's assistant, Big Dave? Okay. You need to know Big Dave. Anyway, go ahead.
And then I've got, I don't know, Lithium. Shit that mattered to me when I was younger.
Right. What is the one album or band that takes you right back to, say, 1981?
81.
Or 83. You know, your youth, the teenage years.
So those are my hardcore punk rock days, right? So 81, 82. I'm trying to think. 82, I guess, is when I really got into punk rock. And I was in DC. I was the suburbs of DC kid, so I got to see Minor Threat when they were playing, and Government Issue, and all the great DC bands. Yeah, you know, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks, Black Flag, all that shit.
Dayglow Abortions.
Yeah, I mean,
I just always love that name.
I did too. They were a little later, I think.
Right.
But then like I was a metal kid before I got into punk rock, more like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Saxon, Van Halen, AC/DC, and then my friend got us into punk rock. So that started, like Ramones was my gateway.
Yeah, gateway drug.
Gateway into.
I love it.
But, you know, that's what really kind of changed everything. Sort of discovering that, and that came with, like, I was a BMX kid and just kind of going off, like,
what did you
getting
ride?
rid of the mainstream.
Yeah, what was your bike? What'd you ride?
I was a Torker kid, and then I got the first Haro freestyler when it came out. Torker made it for him, so it had the same twin top tube. I was never a racer. I was just a dirt jumper and vert rider and whatever.
Right.
Getting into that is sort of counterculture, right? Like, even I used to get made fun of in 7th grade for wearing Vans. Like, I would just and like not even interesting one, like just the old dock shoes.
Were you gay for wearing Vans?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
And then Fast Times came out when I was a senior in high school, and
suddenly you're a visionary.
Not even a visionary. Just every kid that gave me shit was now wearing them, and I was just, fuck you. Now I'm too cool for Vans. I'm on to the next.
Boring.
You know.
So do you play music? Do you play an instrument?
You know, I was in a band for a minute, just singing in a band, but no, I think of myself as a musician who just doesn't know how to play.
I like that. I like that.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
I want to learn ukulele. I've been playing. I dick around with my ukulele, but I don't have the patience to actually learn.
Right. Harmonica at all? You seem like the kind of guy that might have a harmonica in his pocket and like rip it out.
No, no.
Okay. But you do. Yeah, I only play my organ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no,
but I'll say this, like music has always been in the foreground in my life, not the background, right? It's I play it loud. I play, it's dominant. When I drive, my wife hates it. She wants to talk and I play it loud.
Right.
My kids are suffering through it.
Right.
Like, loud music.
Yeah.
And it's just always been in the foreground.
So when you think back of all the concerts that you've been to, like what one stands out? You're like, that was the best show.
Oh man.
I've
seen some really good shows.
Yeah. Or just one that comes to mind.
I was talking to this the other day. I can remember the two that probably damaged my ears the most.
Yeah.
I saw Motorhead. I saw the Plasmatics open for Motorhead at this little club called the Bayou in Georgetown, and or right outside of Georgetown. Motorhead, they brought their stadium stacks. So it was so loud. They had a smoke machine that you couldn't even see the band. You just see these whooshes. And it was the first, that when Wendy O. Williams also went metal. So like the Plasmatics were playing metal too. Like they weren't the punk rock Plasmatics. They were now the metal Plasmatics. But Motorhead was so sick, but it's just so loud. My ears just rang at school for the next, like a week. And then the next loudest show was another small club show. This is in St. Louis when I was in college. Is when Danzig first came out, and he played a small club again with full stacks, and so awesome, but my ears were fucked. But you know what? A funny show I saw in 83,
right?
84, maybe 84. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers open for General Public. Remember General Public?
Holy shit, yeah.
They were like the English, the worst version of the English beat, like all the softies and nothing.
Horrible. But Red Hot's open.
Red Hot's open for them. This one, they were at their rawest, right? Like they just dicks out, like the whole thing.
What a gift.
And I fell in love with them. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are just so awesomely.
Yeah. They were super special and still are. Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I think as I'm thinking about the concerts, it's like, what concerts have I been to? And I've been to a lot of different ones, but like the one that jumped to mind was when David Lee Roth went solo, right?
Yeah.
It was the mountain climbing album, whatever it was.
Cliffhanger, I think.
Yeah, whatever.
Is that what it's called? I don't know.
Big Sky? No, not Big Sky. It's something. You know what I'm talking about. He's hanging off the fucking...
The answer's in our pockets.
Yeah, I know, right? And we happen to get front row seats, right? Roth comes over. I was dating this, I'll say it, fucking smoking hot, Greek, half Polish chick. And Roth comes over, drops down, starts, singing at her, whatever. Jumps up, dances away. 2 seconds later, Rhodey comes over, slaps a backstage pass on her.
Oh my God, is that right?
I swear to God.
That's so awesome.
I swear to God. I was like, okay, make him wear a condom. I so wanted to say my girlfriend fucked David Lee Roth.
Oh my God.
Just make him wear a condom. Of course, she went backstage and he was nowhere to be found. I think he took off, but anyway. Man, so how are you holding up? You got a big fucking week this week, man.
I have a crazy week this week. Yeah, my movie launches on Friday. So
this is huge,
man. Whirlwind. We had the premiere the other night.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Well, the parts of it I remember were great.
Right.
For a 52-year-old man, I think I'm a little old to be blacking out at my own premiere, but it happened.
Debatable.
And then yesterday I was crippled. I had to skip work.
We just don't bounce back like we
do
used to.
We do not bounce back, man. It sucks.
Yeah, it does suck.
Because mentally I'm still,
right. Well, because you want,
18, 16. I don't know where I stopped growing. Somewhere in there. Goddamn.
Where was the premiere?
The premiere was at the Cinerama Dome.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then the after party, they rented out the whiskey, and we just had the whole whiskey.
Oh, dude, of course it was at the whiskey.
So
right.
it was fun.
And did they play?
They did not play. We had an all-girl Motley Crue cover band.
Oh, that's fun.
Play 4 songs, and they ripped it up.
Okay, cool.
So
cool. Was there ever discussion of them playing, or was it just like
they have a pact that they're sticking to not play live anymore? Like basically, what's interesting is I've been attached to this movie for so goddamn long.
Yeah, right.
I've been attached to this movie since. I first went after it in 2010 and got attached beginning of 2011.
That's a long time.
So I kind of during that time, Motley Crue sort of broke up, I guess you'd say. They, somewhere in, I don't remember, they did their last shows ever in 2015. But before that, they made a contract. They had a big press release. And this is when I'm attached to it. And that they're never going to play live again, or at least they have to all agree. They have an out clause, I think. But they were pretty done. Like especially they did this huge last tour. In fact, they hired me to. They were doing a concert film of the last show, and they wanted me to do the interviews, all the behind the scenes stuff. Cool. So I went and hung out with all them and did just following the band behind the scenes. I didn't do any of the concert footage. After that show, that very last show, I think they were all pretty damn sick of each other. Yeah. And they all went basically they had 4 different dressing rooms, didn't really interact much. And after the show, they each kind of had their own little parties and left without anything.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then when we started, when Netflix came in and actually made this all happen, so no one talked to each other. They hadn't talked to each other since New Year's Eve 2015. When Netflix finally made this happen, we were in New Orleans, and Nikki and Tommy came out together to check out the set. This was right before we started shooting, so they got to see a lot of the costumes, a lot of the props, a lot of the set design. When they were there together, they were sort of walking down memory lane. A lot of this was really sort of inspiring to them in a way. Like I guess it regenerated their creative. Like they just kind of realized, what are we doing? Like, and so they sort of re-engaged with each other. Yeah. And then as we were finishing the movie, I get a text from Nikki. He's like, "Hey man, we're recording. I got a song. I'm like, what? So it's sort of the movie sort of brought them back together, Fantastic. At least to the studio. Yeah. So it's been interesting. I think the movie in a lot of ways was sort of cathartic for them to.
Well, look. I mean, I got to first say I admire your courage for fucking taking this project on, man. I mean, it kind of feels like a dangerous project to take on.
It's funny. Like I've been very sort of patient. Like I never intended to be a director, to be honest. Like it just happened.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because as I've gotten to know you and done some research or whatever, like it feels like your life and your career has just kind of evolved. It's been very organic. I don't know if you feel that way, but as an outsider looking in, it just feels like, you're just growing and evolving. It's been very organic for you, your journey.
Yeah. It's funny because it always circles back, right? Like, so I started off, I was a BMX kid and a skateboard kid. Yep. In 1989, right when I graduated, Spike Jonze was out here, and I went to high school with Spike. He was at the time a photographer for our favorite BMX magazine called Freestyle Magazine. And they needed an art director. And I went to school studying art. So, and I kind of knew I wanted to be there because I'd visited him a few times. And so I geared my portfolio up to be a magazine oriented layout artist, a graphic designer. And so it just timed out perfectly. They needed an art director right as I graduated. So in 89, I moved out to LA. Perfect. And was laying out my favorite
magazine.
BMX magazine. Yeah. And so it
that's
just
pretty
felt
fucking cool.
Really perfect. Yeah. And I felt I was on the top of the world. Like this life's never going to get better than this. And then the magazine unfortunately folded 2 years later, and I did a year of freelance. And then the opportunity for Big Brother came up, which was Steve Rocco started a skateboard magazine. He was a very irreverent sort of skateboard mogul. Like he was the biggest thing in skateboarding, but he was fuck you to everybody. And Transworld magazine refused to, both Transworld and Thrasher refused to print one of his ads. It had like a skater trying a really hard trick, and then he's holding a gun to his head, and they refused to print that ad. And so he was like, all right, fuck you, I'm going to start my own magazine. Right. That's kind of how he was. Like, like he didn't like the price of t-shirts. So he started a basic cut and sew sweatshop and they were sewing their own t-shirts, and they were terrible. There were these like huge, this is the era of oversized shit. And the shirts were so bad, but he hates middlemen, he just does it himself. Right. And so he started his own skateboard magazine, but he also this is early on in desktop publishing, right? We had the most advanced Macintoshes, and but we output our own film. I did all of the service bureau stuff too. Sure. We did everything except print. Yeah. And that was a lot of fucking work. And it was all sort of, it was the most cutting edge. We had our own little desktop drum scanner.
Right. That's huge. Oh my God. That was so expensive.
Yeah, so expensive, but also they had a bunch of untrained skateboarders
right.
using it, and so it looks shitty, right? Like
yeah.
At least when you send it out, they did a professional job.
But it also
we're not cleaning the goddamn thing. We're not doing it right.
Yeah,
so the magazine,
you had a very branded patina.
Yeah, and this magazine we did was very irreverent, and a lot of printers wouldn't print it. They would, we had all kinds of shit in there, and so
your money wasn't green enough.
We ended up deep in the valley at some porn print shop.
Excellent.
They had no problem printing it. Right. They had a problem with getting everything in registration. We were the smallest type. I could never read it, even with my glasses today, because we had such small type, and it was always like knocked out of 4 colors. So if it was off red, you could, it's like half pink and half blue.
Fantastic, man. So, have you guys ever thought about doing kind of a retrospective, dare I say, like gallery show in honor
that'd
of
be
Big
fun.
Brother?
Like, no, that's never come up. But we did. DC Shoes did a sort of a tribute to Big Brother. They put out a couple shoes, and they put out. We put together a book for them. It was sort of this commemorative, and that was 4 years ago, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
And then we did a Hulu documentary about Big Brother.
Yeah.
Which came out last year.
Did you produce that?
I produced it. I kind of just wanted not to be involved, but we sort of had to get the story right. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's funny. I'm laughing a little bit because our careers have a little bit of similarity in that I got started as a graphic designer in publishing, but on the book side. And the publisher that I was working for was a small press publisher that specialized in outdoor recreational titles. So rock climbing, rafting, mountain biking, that kind of thing. And when I started in 1988, I'm marking up the manuscripts, sending it to the typesetter, got the wax machine, all that shit. And then I got sick of it. I was like, we need a fucking Mac,
Same time. Exactly. Yeah. Like my magazine, I did basically, paper layout. I would send the type out, get it back, paste it up, Mayline. Yeah. And I convinced them to get us a Macintosh. This is not the Rocco days where we got the most fancy stuff. Right. I had to get a black and white monitor.
Sure.
But
did you have a laser printer?
We did have a black and white laser printer, but I still had to kind of guess what it's going to look like when it's in color.
Right.
But taught myself Mac. Not that it's anything impressive to teach yourself Mac, but
well, that was the beauty of it. It totally democratized creativity in so many ways, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Times are so different now, right? Like, I wouldn't call that magazine so much do it yourself, but Big Brother was a total DIY.
Right.
Luckily, we had a guy that was flipping the bill for our fancy computer equipment, but basically it was 4 guys making a magazine, and it looked like a real magazine. And you can do that now with film. I mean, we're recording a radio show. This was never possible.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's awesome. I mean, it's for creatives, it's a really good time to be alive right now.
It's exactly what I said the other day at our conference on Saturday. I opened the conference with some comments, and I said, arguably, this is the best time in history to be an artist.
Yeah.
More mediums, more materials, more tools, more opportunities.
An insatiable demand for content.
Yeah.
It's these are you got to enjoy it while it's
so okay. So this is supposed to be an art show. I mean, you're an artist. I mean, fundamentally, at your core, you are an artist. I think I remember reading or hearing somewhere that you used to paint. Do you still paint?
I haven't painted in a while.
Why?
I can give you an excuse, but it's really, I would say, just laziness or I have a creative job.
Right.
So I kind of satisfy my creative urges.
I totally get
time.
that. I totally get that.
So,
well, how old were you when you became a dad?
I was old.
I was 42.
I was 41. Yeah.
Okay.
So 42. No, I was 40. I don't even know. 9 years ago.
Early 40s.
Yeah. I'm 52. So 41.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, because I don't know about you, but I know that cut into my fucking style.
Yeah. And it's fun though. Like every year, I should do this more often, but I really, every year I make the kids paint a picture for my wife, and they have to paint my style. Like I really guide them. I figured, like, they don't have to use my style for life, but I will give, that's one tool. I know I can pass that down. Yeah. And I appreciated in all the art schools that, I appreciated the teachers that taught me their style. Like I had a lot of professors in college that were just like, oh, just do your own thing. And that's cool and all, but you need tools in your toolbox.
Right.
And I had a drawing teacher that he was so specific. The best grade, like to get a B in his class, you had to be the best student.
To get a B,
like, but you had to do it exactly his way.
Interesting. Yeah.
He was such an interesting guy, and I'm so thankful for that because I learned so much more from that than I did from a much more loosey-goosey sort of.
And my high school gets back to that notion of like you have to know the rules before you can break them, kind of thing.
Yeah, my high school teacher who thought like he would be the greatest painting professor. He is. He lives. His name's Walt Bartman. He's how I got into college. I was a C student, but I had a really good painting portfolio. I got into art school through my painting portfolio.
So you put that portfolio together in high school to get into college. Okay, got it. So how old were you when you started painting?
I painted my whole life. My grandfather and I used to paint.
So was your grandfather was an artist?
Yeah, I don't know if I call him an artist, but he was. He liked to do creative stuff, and like we did a lot of. So I don't know. I was always into art.
Yeah. Who do you collect? What do you like when it comes to art?
I mean, but for me, it's mostly. I wouldn't say I have a certain style that I collect. They're mostly skateboard artists, people that I know. I like having art from people that I have some sort of connection with. So, like Thomas Campbell, Ed Templeton, a lot of those guys that I know them, so it's much more special to me.
Yeah, I forget what year it was, but back in the day when we had the gallery, we did a show with some of the guys from Dogtown. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great show. I wasn't a skate kid, but I was a BMXer. What great days!
Yeah. I pretty much switched over my senior year in high school. I went from my friend had a half pipe in his backyard. I had a quarter pipe in my backyard, and I just started skateboarding more and BMXing less. I think because it didn't hurt as bad when you fell. Like riding ramps, man, like the bike just comes to eat you.
Yeah.
And you get tangled up so bad at it. So skateboarding just seemed more relaxing to me.
So when Finch rides his bike, does he wear a helmet?
I haven't shoved that down their throats much, my daughter's probably the more likely one to do something more stunty than he is. But yeah, I do the whole helmet thing, and it's
an ongoing sort of debate, here at this house because it's an old story. It's like, are you kidding me? When I was a kid, we didn't fucking wear a helmet. You know what I mean? Like, you crash and you learned. I said, it's a slippery slope. What's next? They're going to bed. Put a helmet on them. They might fall out.
Yeah, my sort of lifestyle sort of slowly trickles into my parenting. I've been pretty traditional as far as parenting goes, but just this weekend we were swimming in the pool, and I have about 4-foot high waterfall.
Yeah, nice.
And I threw out a $5 offer to my daughter and son if they would stand with their toes on the edge of the waterfall and just fall like a tree. And my daughter just flat as a board, face plant, like belly flop. Like didn't even break the surface of the water, just smacked so hard.
Total pro.
Cost me $5, but it was so worth it.
Would she have done it for less? That's the question.
I offered $1 first, and that didn't go over. So.
Okay, all right, well, good. So she's a good negotiator, and she's a total pro.
Yeah, my sister was out there jacking the price up a little bit too. So,
do you have any siblings?
I do. I have my brother passed away, but I have a brother and a sister. So,
are you guys pretty close?
Yeah, we're all close. Yeah.
Tremaine. What is Tremaine? Is that French?
It's a
Irish?
French name. Yeah. But my blood is mostly Norwegian. My mom was a first generation American. My grandparents were both Norwegian immigrants. Even on my dad's side, there's quite a bit of Norwegian in there. So I identify Norwegian.
Have you spent much time in Norway?
I've been there a couple of times, but no, not really. No.
I've been there once. I've been to Oslo.
Yeah.
My buddy was playing piano in Oslo.
That's cool.
For a while.
My favorite band of all time is from Norway, though.
Which
Turbo
one?
Negro.
Never heard of them, but I feel like I need to know.
Well, they did the theme song for Wild Boys.
Oh, shit, yeah.
We used all their music all the time on Wild Boys and Jackass. and they're awesome. You just have to check them out.
So why did you want to do Dirt? I mean, why did you want to do that project?
I wanted to do the Dirt, not because I'm a Motley Crue super fan. I like Motley Crue just fine.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do the Dirt. We read that book. We passed that book around when we were making the first Jackass movie.
Okay.
It was like, holy shit, these guys are crazy. But then as time went on, I realized that this is where our lives are so parallel. I'm sitting here watching this happen. Like what fame and the Jackass guys are all encouraged to be naughty, right? They're encouraged to be bad.
That's the business model.
That's the business model. And same with Motley Crue, right? Yeah. Like I think they had pressure on themselves to always live up to it or whatever. I think it's your threshold and your acceptance of what's tolerant, like it moves, that line moves. It's like drug addiction. And
well, you have to keep outdoing yourself.
And you don't, it's not even intentional. It just happens. Like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then 2 years later, you have to do so much more than that. And so much more than that. Right. And there's a cost to living like that too. And so by the time 2010 came around, when that script became available, or I shouldn't say the script, but the opportunity to make the Dirt, that's when I had lived through the Jackass story. We had just finished Jackass 3. We'd gotten we dealt with addiction. We dealt with death. We dealt with every sort of craziness, not just the fun stuff. The fun stuff is way up there, but also the real life shit and the dark shit. And I connected to that book on its honesty and they each have their own distinct voices, much like the Jack. I just really personally felt connected to it. I thought I could tell it right. Like I thought that this is something I can do. And I also wanted to, for my first scripted thing, after the first Jackass movie, I was getting scripts. People were trying to figure out what would this guy do.
What's next? Yeah.
And they were terrible. Most of what I was getting wasn't right for me.
Was it Oscar award winning material?
It was the worst comedies that were passed up by everybody else, and that would land to me. So I get an email from my agent in 2010. He's like, "Are you a Motley Crue fan?" And I'm like, "Oh fuck, the Dirt's back around." And so I put together. I used my graphic design skills and made a lookbook, and it looked awesome. I mean, I was an art director.
I want to see it. Will you share it to
me?
Yeah,
I should have brought it.
Yeah.
It was a pretty impressive lookbook, and I grabbed a lot of movie images, Motley Crue images. Just in photographers that I thought had the sensibility. I didn't want this thing to look like Playboy. I wanted it to look like Terry Richardson.
Right.
Yeah, I put together this lookbook and also cut together a sizzle reel with a lot of movie clips of movies I thought were of the like mind and the right tone. And our sizzle reel even had the arc of the story I wanted to tell. And I went in so hard on it. I don't go after anything really. My career in general falls into my lap. Well, the early days, no, but this is the first thing I went after since Jackass, I would say. Yeah, I made a full-on pitch. I had to sell the producers on it. They loved it. But then I had to go convince each of the band members that I'm the right guy to tell their story to. And how
many other directors were they talking to?
I don't know. Yeah, I think a few. Some pretty solid names.
Well, kudos to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but I mean, how?
But that's 2010, right? So in 2011, I get attached to this thing thinking, all right, this is it. It's going to happen in a year. No, it didn't. Like to the point where we had a deal with Focus Pictures, and then everyone left there right as we were on the 1 yard line. And I did Bad Grandpa, and that's when other real scripts started coming in after Bad Grandpa, because that's more of a narrative. And so, but I was committed. I'm like, no, I still have this, and I really want this to be my first scripted feature because it's not a comedy.
Yeah.
It's not something you would typecast me into, but it is something that would appeal, I think, to people who like my shit. Right? So I just thought this is the perfect thing, and I'm going to wait it out and whatever. I'll do my other TV work and everything else that comes over. But for my first scripted feature, I was just connected. I wasn't going to do anything else until that happened.
What was the budget?
The budget was, I don't know where we ended. It was under 20. Yeah.
Pretty,
I don't know, somewhere between 16 and 18.
So one of the things,
it looks a lot higher than that.
It looks fucking great.
It's not tooting my horn.
Yeah, no. I wanted to. Well, so I got a chance to watch it.
Oh, you
right?
did?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I yesterday, in fact, I watched it twice. Well, first of all, I just want to say that, I mean, you did something. What struck me about the project is that you did something that I thought was pretty remarkable in that you basically figured out a way to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag.
Huh.
And what I mean by that is the way you approached this story that spans 3 decades, 2 decades anyway.
I limited it to really the first, say, 15 years of the band's life.
But there was so much of the story that, because the movie's an hour 48 or something. Yeah. Right. I don't know. I just felt like you figured out a way to concentrate so much of their story. And I didn't read the book, but okay. So I didn't read the book, but I'm just saying, like, I felt like I got a lot more than an hour 48 out of it.
That's great. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. They have a lot of drama and crazy stories in there. It was hard to choose which ones add up to the whole.
Okay. By the way, it was a stroke of genius to set the tone and start the movie with the squirt scene. Okay. That resonated with me. I'm just saying.
It's so funny because that was always like the original script that we started with. There was already a script from the Paramount when this thing was from 2003 or 4. I don't know. Okay. There was a script written.
When did the book come out?
2001.
Okay.
So there was a script. The script was non-linear. It was just a bunch of really crazy scenes, well-written scenes, but I didn't think it told a story that you wouldn't care about the characters if you made that movie, in my opinion. So we broke the script apart and put it more in a linear, but the movie always opened with that scene, and there was some debate whether, and I was like, no, you have to. Absolutely. If any fan of the book, this movie needs to start like this.
100%. Well, but all the excess aside, all of the bad behavior aside, all that shit, dude, you told a human story. Like, it's a very human story. Like, what I appreciated about, I grew up in the Midwest, right? So you have these fantasies, in the Midwest, when some big band breaks through, whether it's Van Halen or Motley Crue or whatever, it's like, oh my God, these guys are, they're perfect. Oh no, they're not. They're damaged. They're human beings, right? I mean, they have like real shit that they're dealing with, right? And they just happen to be, but they're packaged and they're marketed and they're promoted. And for a lot of kids out there, that you sort of revel in the fantasy, as I did. And what I loved about your story, and of course, coming from the book, was humanizing them, telling their backstory, and then providing that context for, how and why they became who they became.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Yeah, you got to care about these guys to.
But then just the little touches too, like that scene when they're cutting up the coke, and but he's using the business card of the manager. Yeah. That's just like a nice touch.
Did you even notice? There's a subtle thing in that scene. Like one of the props, is a little vacuum cleaner Coke straw.
Yes, no, I totally noticed that.
So, yeah, he just snorts it up with a little vacuum cleaner.
He's like, "Yeah, here, can you clean this up for me?" It was like the line or whatever. Yeah,
he says, "Vacuum it up." Actually,
yeah. So, yeah. Oh yeah, vacuum it up for me.
Because you couldn't really tell, but like for us, that's just a fun little detail. Yeah. No, it was really an awesome experience making the movie, and my thing about doing this movie was, all right, for me to do my first scripted feature, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to surround myself with the best people I can. I want to be the person on this set with the least amount of experience. Like that's how I attacked getting into.
So who was on your crew?
So our first hire was the director of photography, Toby Oliver, who had just done Get Out.
Yeah.
And that was big to me. Get Out looked awesome.
Yeah.
But what I liked about him doing Get Out was also that Get Out was Jordan Peele's first scripted feature as well. And it seemed like, from interviewing Toby and talking to him, he felt like someone that could look out for me and my shortcomings. What I don't know, he would cover for me. Sure. And it was absolutely the right call. Plus, what I liked about him was he's not a rock and roll guy, but he's a guy that loves music, same age as me or right around the same age as me, cared about the 80s. Yeah. That was another big important thing was that we got this time right, and this scene right, because it would be so easy to fuck this up. Yep. Right? I knew this going into like hair is one of the most important things. We need to spend a lot of money on hair because if you feel like it's a bunch of actors in wigs and it looks like Rock of Ages or some bullshit, that it's going to feel like a parody or a satire, And so I hired Christine Wada was our costume designer. She had worked at CBGB's, and she's just rock and roll and got it, and was just no bullshit. Mel Jones was our production designer. Same thing she did in Whiplash, and just can make something out of nothing. Showed me like Whiplash was done on a shoestring budget, but just she showed me how they converted all these, just unbelievable. But also 80s kid, like knows the 80s, like wanted to get it right, wanted to not bullshit this. Authenticity was such an important thing to all of us.
And it comes across.
Cool. I'm glad
the way.
because
I'm 48. I'm a product of the 80s, grew up in the 80s. Obviously I think most kids look back on a lot of kids look back on their adolescence with, fond memories. I know I do in the 80s growing up, as shitty as it was for so many other people, but I thought you nailed it in that regard.
Yeah. It's funny because it's a really loud time and a really loud scene in that loud time. Right. So we always looked at all right, what movies got it right? Boogie Nights got that right. Like that was a really loud scene, but it never felt like they were just making fun of it. It always felt like they handled it really well. Like it went big and over the top at times, but like they stayed in a kind of a lane that I thought that's what this movie needs to be. It needs to be cinematic, but it needs to also feel like shit. This isn't making fun of this time. This is
an accurate representation.
Yeah.
A reasonable facsimile, as they say, I guess. Yeah, man. No, I mean, I got nostalgic.
Cool, man.
I did. I got fucking nostalgic,
that's how it felt
man.
Making it too.
Yeah.
Like it really felt like, oh man, we built the Rainbow Room in the Whiskey in New Orleans.
Yeah.
She was like, it was so fun.
Okay. So, right. You shot in New Orleans. I wanted to ask you about that because it really did feel like you were shooting on location here in LA.
Yeah, but various
places.
And what's cool, like a lot of these places still have, like the whiskey doesn't look the same. The whiskey was black and white back when, and then it was purple and yellow during Motley Crue's run.
Right.
And then the buildings next to it, you'd have to still do a bunch of green screen anyway. And then most of their story happens indoor. There's not a ton of, so we did shoot some.
It's hard to do cocaine outdoors. You kind of need to be indoors. The winds are real.
What's fun is too, you look at this band and like I always fantasize like, what are these guys like in day to day, right? Like, what does Nikki Sixx look like at the grocery store or at a pool party, or these guys are constantly. They're themselves all the time. Right. So they look crazy when they're not.
Right. Oh, so
like I saw this isn't a great time to probably talk about Michael Jackson, but when This Is It came out, Michael had done so much crazy plastic surgery and looked like a freak, right? Like just looked crazy. And I was like, why is he doing that to himself? Why does he do that? And then that movie, This Is It, came out. And you see him on the stage and he looks so kick-ass. And you're like, he's just made for the stage. He's made to perform. He's not made to walk down the aisle of the grocery store. He's a freak.
Right.
Until he's
his natural environment
doing his thing
is the stage.
That's what and I thought that was so interesting. I was captivated watching it, and it made sense to me why he.
Well, but right, and so part of what you're getting at, I think, in my own words, is like this idea that some people they're born characters. I mean, that phrase of like they're right out of central casting. I mean, they're authentic characters, right? I mean, they're not contriving this shit. This is who they are. I mean, those guys were born to be fucking rock stars, and Michael Jackson literally was raised to be Michael Jackson. How do you feel normal when you're not on stage being worshipped?
Yeah, but it's so funny to me to picture, especially back then when they were just so psycho. Just to picture them having to do day-to-day things that normal people have to do.
By the way, that's a funny ass fucking skit or something for SNL or whatever, right?
Right.
You know, like Nikki Sixx goes to the grocery store or whatever. I once remember hearing
like Lady Gaga. Picture her just having to do
right.
daily
She's going to pick up
thing.
Yeah, dry cleaning or whatever. You know, she's picking up one of her crazy ass dresses from the dry cleaner. Right. You know, the salami's wrong. Yeah, man. I don't know. Well, I remember hearing a story years ago. Our old boy from Aerosmith, Jesus,
Steve Tyler.
He called. He couldn't get into his hotel room or something, and because he didn't know how to work the key, and he like calls his manager. He's like, I don't know how to get in my room. You know, it's like, you know. Yeah, I mean, when everything's done for you, I wish, you know, I don't have that problem.
Right.
You know, I go to the grocery store a lot. Do you do your own shopping?
You know, I'll go. My wife tends to do more of that than I do, but
how'd you guys meet?
She actually worked for me on the first Jackass movie.
You dirty dog.
Yeah. So we didn't do it. We were strictly
very professional
then. And over time, she wore me out.
She's hunting you down.
No, we just got along really well.
That's cool. So I mean, are you like buds now with the guys?
With which guys?
With the Motley Crue.
I'll tell you what, man, I was so nervous. That's one thing I was nervous about, was that I knew I shouldn't say nervous. I was anticipating them being really difficult.
Yeah.
Throughout the process of telling their story. Like I would have been, if you're telling my story, I would have been up your ass.
Absolutely.
If you're the director. But from the minute I met Nikki, I had to go pitch. I took my little book and my little sizzle reel, made him watch it, and made my pitch. And I was nervous with Nikki because, you know, if you read that book, he comes off as like, holy shit, this guy's gonna be hard to win over. And he saw something in me. I think that he sees himself like a underdog. Yeah. This isn't the obvious choice, but this guy actually cares and is going to get it right. I didn't have a secret agenda to, you know. And so he was actually super easy in that meeting, and was psyched. Like this is it, man. He's the right guy. My next meeting was with Tommy, who I totally overlooked. I'm like, no, Tommy's my boy. Like he's one of the Jackass guys. I get Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy grilled me, man. He was like, how the fuck do you think you're the Jackass dude? Like, this is not a comedy. What do you think? Like, blah, blah, blah. How are you going to do this?
He was a bad cop.
He bad cop the shit out of me. like, and I'm like, which was great. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, I had to justify my choices.
Yeah.
And then I get in my car right after that meeting. I'm like, oh, man. And I get this text from him. He's like, fuck yeah, dude, this is going to be sick. And I'm like, that's exactly what I thought you were. Like, why weren't you in that meeting?
Right.
Come on. And then they left me alone, like, to make the movie.
Yeah.
I met with all of them. I had to get, fill in some scenes. They were all pretty available to me if I wanted their help and needed their help. But they also gave me the space and freedom to do.
That's huge, man.
They never said you can't say that. You can't do this.
Right.
Like, the stories that are in there are my choices, and the stories that we thought mattered, and so that's what we decided. They never came in, and I guess it's not going to drop because now the movies. I've been waiting for the other shooter. I've been waiting for the difficult guys to show up because I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me that they aren't, but they've been so cool to me the whole fucking time. I get these nice texts, like it doesn't make sense.
They've mellowed.
They're awesome. Like they've been so supportive and good. Like I have nothing bad to say about it.
So I wonder if the author, or the co-writer of the book has the same experience. Because writing the book must have been a bit of a heavy lift.
Neil was very involved. We brought Neil in also to help us with some of the VO. The book is so specific. If you read this book,
I'm going to read it now.
It has he did such a good job of capturing their voices. And each guy, what's interesting about the book is they oftentimes contradict each other on their stories. Mm-hmm. And that's fascinating, right? Because their memories just don't quite line up. And I really wanted to get that. I wanted the movie to feel a little bit like that. This is an unreliable narration.
Right.
Gives me
By the way, not to interrupt, but I do appreciate the shout out to the truth, because there were a couple of scenes, or that one scene earlier, like, this didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
Boy looks at Mickey looks, I think, to the camera.
It's Mick. Yeah.
Mick, I'm sorry. Mick looks to the camera and says, this didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
But like this, so the shout out to the truth, I thought was great.
Yeah. Well, we made this big rock star entrance for the manager, but really it was much more blasé. When you're making a movie like this, you have to consolidate, especially when you're making a movie for any kind of budget and trying to tell a 90-minute story that isn't just a collection of a bunch of scenes, which, when you're telling a true story, you could easily end up with. You have to consolidate certain locations and people to make it work. And so,
and that gets back to my comment. That gets back to my comment earlier about putting 10 pounds on a 5-pound bag. I mean, the way you consolidated things, the way you organized things, the way you edited, I just thought I got a whole lot more of the story than an hour 48 should have given me.
That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But, so you kind of had a dream client in some ways in the Crue. Like, they were as hands-on as you wanted them or needed them, but they were also as hands-off as one might hope or dream. And then, but of course, you were funded by Netflix. Yep. And Netflix famously has a hands-off approach.
And they are absolutely true to that reputation. Like, so it was just me and the producers. The only one telling me no was a producer every now and then, and that was based on budgetary or, but I had a really good relationship with the two main producers on it.
Was it a tough sell with Netflix? I mean, going in and pitching them. I mean, were they attached to the project?
No, I wouldn't say it was a tough sell. They liked the script and they were.
So I mean, were you shopping?
The hardest thing about Netflix to get it to finally go was they cared a lot about the casting, which was great, I cared about it too, obviously. Yeah. And so getting the cast right is where they cared the most. That made it take an extra while.
And you know what, in all candor, what I'm realizing now is the fact that the casting didn't come to mind for me is a testament to how good the fucking casting was. Yeah,
like I think it was important to us to not have real recognizable faces, at least the main four guys, right?
100%.
Like, it goes back to kind of not wanting to feel the wigs. Yep. Say Matt Damon was one of the guys, you'd feel that wig on him, right? Like, because that dude. I don't know why Matt Damon came to mind, but.
You got a thing for him, apparently.
Yeah, so we wanted to find some unknown, not unknown necessarily, but like just guys not household names.
Yeah, but they were familiar to the extent that there were familiar faces, and there were a couple. They were in the right places.
Cool, yeah,
right. Like the guy that plays the manager who's on Billions, who I fucking love. That guy cracks me up.
David Costabile.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I know that guy, but it was like the perfect.
Like, we felt like our casting agent, like our casting director, Barbara Fiorentino, and our local guy in New Orleans, they gave me such good options. We found this little kid, I've never seen a little kid. Like, I couldn't even, there's a hospital scene with Vince's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I could barely sit in the room and direct that scene, just, I guess, because I have a kid and I've gone through the cancer shit that, I could barely sit there and direct. This kid was such a good actor that it made it too real. I wanted that scene to be over so fast.
Yeah, no, she was amazing, and so was the little boy.
And the little boy, little kid in South Carolina, some unknown kid. So your casting, it was sort of fun. Like, I always wanted a guy from the music world. I wanted either some sort of rock star. And when Machine Gun Kelly turned in that tape, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is exactly what the movie needs. And he did not let that, like having that guy who's really living it be on the set every day, and sort of, he had the right influence over the other guys, and then the other guys had their influence on him acting wise and everything else. It was perfect. So the guys really did become them, Right. We had enough time in New Orleans it was nice that we shot also in New Orleans, in my opinion, because we didn't know anyone there. So we only knew we've got to form that bond and that gang sort of.
How many weeks or months of shooting?
2 months of shooting, and
that's pretty tight.
Four months of prep, like a lot more prep than shooting time. And luckily, I got the band out there. I got not the real band, but my actor band, in enough time to put them through a rigorous band camp,
right?
And just long enough that we all, like I said, lived on top of each other and went out every night. We just stayed together nonstop. and made it a real connection, real bond, and I think it shows in the movie.
Well, I know that, your appearance today on the Not Real Art podcast is the most significant of your press promotional stops.
I've been saving it all for this one.
What other stops you making along this junket?
K-Rock tomorrow.
That's fun.
And they were going to schedule it right after the premiere. I was supposed to be the next day. And I'm
like, good thing they didn't, right?
Oh, man.
Although you might still have been drunk and, hilarious.
I would not have been able to do it. I could not get out of bed yesterday. I was so fucked.
Dude, so when you party like that, are you mixing alcohol or are you just...
I'm doing anything anyone hands me. Like, not drugs. I don't do drugs, but like any alcohol anyone hands. Like on a night like that, I was... every kind of shot.
Right. So my wife and I, we commuted from LA to Chicago for 2.5 years, right, when we met. And so when I turned 30, she, much to her credit, planned a total surprise birthday party for me from LA, right, on my 30th birthday. Long story short, I just got wrecked. And she had booked this fancy suite and we had this whole grand romantic plan. And of course, I was just blotto. I mean, there was just no way I was getting up, let alone, whatever. And she's like, God, she's like, just because somebody hands you a shot doesn't mean you have to do it. I'm like, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I could never do that little throw it over the shoulder fake, like, man.
No, man, it's an insult. In Chicago, if somebody gives you a fucking shot, you do the fucking shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So whatever.
It's funny. One time I was with Wee Man in Chicago, and we were just sitting at our hotel bar.
What hotel?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a nice hotel, and we're at this fancy bar, and I looked behind the bar. Typical, all the bottles, but there was one bottle up higher that had its own light. They had its own light source, and this really fancy crystal bottle. I'm like,
just calling you.
What the fuck is that? And I talked to the bartender. What is that? He's like, oh, that's Louis XIV.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, oh, how much does that cost? He's like, oh, it's $300 a shot. I'm like, 300.
Must be the fountain of youth.
And I was like, Wee Man, because like Wee Man gets pounded worse than any of the other guys. Like the Jackass Series.
Yeah.
Like he gets, because you see him a mile away, like
right.
That's a Jackass suit, right? So
yeah.
And everybody always wants to come up and buy him shots and do whatever.
Right.
Like it's a nice thing.
Yeah.
All right, next motherfucker that comes up and wants to buy you shots, you point to that bottle and you say, you got to buy one for my friend too. And don't talk about the price and let him pour the shot.
Oh my God. And people in Chicago will fucking do that.
Yeah.
They want to buy you shots.
You'll get stunned. You got to be careful about buying your celebrity friend shots. Some of those celebrities might be dicks.
That's hilarious. So. Yeah, this is a horrible story, but actually the evening of that 30th birthday party that Channing threw for me, we were out because that party was a Saturday night. And so my boys took me out on Friday night. And we were in the Gold Coast, and God knows, I think it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning. Bars stay open until 5, right? And yeah, it's hardcore. We don't fuck around. And so we roll up on this fucking movie production. This is a horrible story to tell, but we were like, what the fuck? So we happen to like pull it right up where the craft services, was located. So we're fucking hungry, so we like roll out and we're like getting food, whatever. And we're totally hammered. And we're like, what movie is this? Oh, it's Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, we hate that fucking guy. We start taking, they had like these little donuts, like the round donuts, and we just start fucking winging. Like he's like in a scene, you know what I mean? Like they're filming, and we just start winging fucking donut balls at him. They fucking cut. We like run. Like, oh my God. It was awesome.
You can't shoot around drunks.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well,
I was on a roll around movie sets. Like, I want to get a walkie. They all use that same Motorola. Like, right. I want to just kind of scan channels and find productions and start yelling weird because I know what to say now.
Right. Hack this. Yeah. Prank calls.
All right. Cut.
That sounded very official as well. That's right. With authority. Yeah.
All right. Send the actors out now. I need the actors now.
Keep it going. I want to hear more.
I haven't done that yet. I'm going to do it.
You need to like release an app with those with those sound bites on it.
I still don't know what to say. I don't know when to say cut.
My God. Do you feel like? I mean, do you ever pinch yourself and be like, how am I here?
You know, it's funny. Like, yeah, I have to pitch myself a lot for doing commercials, and I hate it. I'm not good at selling myself. I don't like it.
Yeah,
and
like just like a true artist,
I don't care enough, I guess, to do it well. So I just, I'm no good at that. Like, it was so out of my comfort zone to do for The Dirt, which is something I really wanted. I really went out of my way to sell myself on that. Mm-hmm. I spent everything on that. I'm not gonna. I just can't do it. I hate it.
So what's next for you, man?
I'm producing a movie with Eric Andre that should come out in the fall, which has been like, it's crazy because that one also took a long time. Not like The Dirt, but Eric and I met.
Eric's awesome, by the way.
6 years ago.
Fucking funny. About
this idea, and it has taken this long. And of course, then they happen at the exact same fucking time. I mean, like, it's a yeah. I don't mean to complain about things because that's not something you can
embarrassment of riches, but yeah.
But man, why couldn't they just like happen?
No,
it's 2 months apart. They're right on top of each other. We've been shooting them at the exact same time, editing them at the exact same time. I went straight from finishing The Dirt. I checked out for The Dirt. Luckily, I'm not directing the Eric movie, so they didn't need me there on every second. But in post, I like to be there, and I've done that kind of movie before. So,
what do you think your greatest strength is as a movie maker?
I think
as
post,
a content producer.
I'm stronger in post than anywhere else.
Interesting.
Think figuring out in the edit bay and
that makes sense.
It's so funny because someone explained it to me and I never thought about it until I just really done it. A scripted movie in particular, you make it 3 times. You make it on paper, then you have your actors and you actually shoot it and you're making it then, and then you're making it in post, and it's 3 different movies. So.
Did you ever imagine growing up back outside DC that you'd be doing this?
No, not at all. It's wild. It's been such a gradual progression from going from magazines to TV. And with the magazine stuff, we started putting out videos with Big Brother. We started putting videos out, and it just felt like a natural. It didn't feel that different.
Right. Right.
It's putting something together from scratch.
Yeah.
And so it was an easy transition to go from Big Brother to Jack. I shouldn't say easy, but it just felt natural.
Yeah. And more organic.
Yeah. More organic. It was funny because even in 2002, when I was trying to figure out we were doing the Jackass movie. And that's right when we were doing that movie with MTV Films, and MTV Films had just optioned The Dirt in 2002.
Wow. Okay.
And so I threw my hat in there. I talked to David Gale, the president of MTV Films, and I said, "Hey man, I'll direct that if you want, if you need a director." Just joking. Like, I knew I didn't have it. I'm not being considered for it. And I had no idea how to make fucking Jackass into a movie, much less. But over time, even though, Jackass is its own thing, it is crafting little stories and then Bad Grandpa and everything else, all the TV shows. I've done a few docs. It's all kind of the same thing. So I wasn't as underwater as I thought I would have been, that I was prepared to be. I thought doing The Dirt, I was going to be buried and not know what to do. And I was buried, but it's still running a set. That's the same.
And you also had the wisdom.
Right. And I hired the right fucking people. Right. I was surrounded by people that I could totally trust. Right. Whereas my biggest responsibility was get these actors to get the performance that I need. And that made my life so much easier. Wow.
So actually what I'm hearing is that, you're kind of an exotic animal in Hollywood in that you are pretty much a well-adjusted human being. Your ego is pretty well in check. I think a lot of folks in Hollywood may not have had the wisdom and the self-awareness to, build that team. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself mature by any means, but
you see, I mean, that's
what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? Like,
well, 100%, and it's like the thing that I've said, it's like my pet peeve is self-importance. Because basically, unless you're fighting fires or saving lives,
absolutely,
who the fuck are you?
Exactly.
That's basically how I feel about it.
Yeah.
We are lucky sons of bitches because we get to fucking be creative and make art and do, And it's important. Art is important. It feeds the soul. It entertains. It's a valuable thing. But in the, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Like when I was doing Big Brother, I moved up, like when Larry Flint bought the magazine and so we moved, I was in the South Bay and then we moved to Mid Wilshire and then I met Knoxville and he lived up Beechwood. Knoxville was writing for us, writing for Big Brother. And then he told me, oh, this little house is becoming available up on my street. If you should rent it and it's cool. And so I rented that house and then that was right before Jackass started. And so every day I would drive up Beechwood and see the Hollywood sign. And when we got the movie, when we signed the movie deal, I was just giggling every day driving up to the Hollywood signs, both middle fingers up, just like, fuck it. Like just waving the fucking flag and just driving up to the Hollywood sign every day. I just thought it was so funny. Like we pulled one over.
Yeah, life is fucking bizarre. But I think I don't know how I know this or where I heard this or whatever, but I think I caught you talking one point about how when you were pitching Jackass the movie, you had pitched it around town and it just fell flat in the room. Like
that was
no one
TV
got
show.
it.
The TV show, not the
TV. Okay.
Yeah, no, there was no pitch in the movie.
Right. Okay. The show.
The show.
Okay.
We first pitched it to HBO. It was the funniest fucking pitch because both Knoxville and I had no experience. But Spike barely had any experience like selling a TV show.
He wasn't Spike at this point.
Well,
right?
he was.
He
was. We got every meeting because Spike was on our team, right? Like Spike was an in demand.
Got it.
He's terrible at selling himself, just like we are.
Real artists,
And so we go into this. I cut together like a 12-minute little, call it a sizzle tape of all the crazy stuff Knoxville had done it up to that point, which was the self-defense test, where he and I cut together a lot of BAM CKY footage on there and some Steve-O shit. And so I had this great little 12-minute crazy sizzle reel.
Yeah.
I mean, I had like Steve-O shitting in a lake. Like it's just a bunch of crazy stuff on it. And we're showing it to these two buttoned up ladies the first pitch is with two executives at HBO. They were both women. And my agent introduces us. And then he's like, first we'd like to show you this little tape. So we put on the tape. And I thought the tape was hilarious. I'm cracking up. Knoxville's cracking up. But these two ladies are just not even smiling. Nice. And then we decided, all right, we're going to let Spike do all the talking. He's the one they want to hear from.
Right.
We'll just kick back. And Spike is just like, like to the point where my agent had to jump in and just try to save the day, but it was
totally clammed up.
I'm sure he was just like, fuck this. This is not going to happen. But then we had a meeting at MTV and right away it was a totally different energy. Like they got it and wanted it clearly.
Well, they knew their audience, right?
They knew their audience.
Well,
the rest is sort of history. But
but I mean, that's such a testament, right? I mean, again, at the conference over the weekend, Jorge Gutierrez, who did Book of Life, and now he's got an overhead deal at Netflix. And he was telling his story about getting the Book of Life made. Guillermo del Toro, produced it, right? Guillermo, they're both Mexican, right? Born and raised in Mexico City. And Jorge tells a story about him chasing Guillermo. And Guillermo just was fucking putting him off, giving him hell. Secretly he wanted the project and he was going to do the project, but he made Jorge work for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the story is hilarious. And the moral of the story, though, which kind of gets to what you're saying, is the reality of so much of this in life is never, ever, 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 ever give up.
No, everyone's going to put roadblocks in front of you. And I've learned so many people stop at a roadblock. They just stop.
Yep.
Wait, why are you stopping there? Just go fuck around it and
fucking dig under it. Fucking
you
climb
find a way
whatever.
around it.
Yeah.
We would get told we can't do this on Jackass all the time, legal or standard. Someone would tell us no, and they give you a blanket no. They want you to kill the whole thing, and we would never let that happen. It was always what is it about this? We'd always boil it right down to, and I'm talking ridiculous shit oh, you can't eat the ingredients of an omelet and throw it up into a pan and cook it and eat it.
Who says?
And I'm like, well, what's the fucking problem? They're like, all right, listen. It has to be cooked at whatever degree.
Right.
We get down to like we got told no, a blanket no on I'm going to give you just stupid examples, but on Jackass 3, we have this phantom camera shot, like super, super slow motion shot of Chris Pontius swinging his dick and hitting a ping pong ball. Like he's wearing a baseball hat, and it looked awesome.
Right,
like it's just super slow motion. You see his dick hit the ping pong ball. Ping pong
Were
ball
you
flies.
using a Phantom camera for that?
Yeah, we're shooting a Phantom.
Nice,
And
nice.
it was 3D, a 3D Phantom, most expensive camera probably ever made. So it's 2 Phantoms shooting. It's so funny, And so we cut together this, and it's just dick in your face, like super slow motion. And PA is like, no, you can't. That scene's not going to make it. I'm like, well, why not? Like,
Male genitalia.
Yeah, but you can do it.
Right.
Like I've seen plenty of movies that have full frontal male nudity. This isn't a sex scene. This isn't an erect penis. It's not.
Right.
And I don't know. We just don't feel right about how it's just too long. So I sped it up a little. So it was not this slow. Like it was at first like a minute and a half of just. It was ridiculous. Like, I mean, you really were suffering through it. So they kept kicking it back. I sped it up to the point where it wasn't funny anymore. It wasn't funny if it wasn't super slow.
It had to be slow.
So our solution ended up being like, I think it came down to, all right, you can have 10 seconds in this shot of penis.
Yeah.
And so we put a black bar over it. And then when he swings, the black bar doesn't keep up. And so the penis comes out from the black bar, hits the ball, and then the black bar slowly catches back up right at that 10-second mark.
Right.
And that was okay. Like, and I think we just wore him out. We're just like, we're not taking no.
Right.
And and we're willing to just be ridiculous.
Yes.
But you have to. You can't let anyone stop you. If you've got an idea, there's no excuses either. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If you're creative, if you're hungry, you're gonna make your shit. You'll figure it out.
Dude, that's fucking hilarious. Yeah, no, it's I think we have in our culture, well, we're an instant gratification culture, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I think the kind of unintended consequence of, our drive-through push button, free delivery culture is that it somehow instills this idea of unrealistic expectations about what it really takes in life to be successful, and the media celebrates, the overnight success when the overnight success has been busting his or her ass for fucking years. Right. But I mean, it's like, what I love about that story is that as artists, you were like, there's a creative solution here.
Yeah. Like you find out what, like a lot of times it's the easiest thing to say is no. It's almost like also the easiest thing it's easier to be negative than it is to be positive,
100%.
right? Like you can sit back and just shit on things all day long and it's easy.
Yep.
You got to be brave almost to be positive and to be optimistic.
Yep.
And, because pessimism's contagious, like the negative energy is
100%.
Totally
but so is
contagious.
optimism. Is joy.
But optimism is absolutely. Like I try to make sure when we're running set, I don't want any of that fucking negative. Like I'll come in and I'm a big, bright, shining power ball of optimism.
Yeah,
but you have to work twice as hard to have if you have a strong pessimist around,
and so much of business, right? Whether it's in Hollywood or some other industry. I mean, at the end of the day, most of these companies, their business models require that they protect the status quo. I mean, they are not, they are not in business of taking risks, right? So there are people being paid to say no.
It's funny because I've done some commercials with big advertisers getting out of their comfort zones and watching them panic, and I don't get caught up in it. That's not my whatever. It's I don't do commercials with the same. When I do a commercial, I'm trying to make sure that I'm delivering what they want.
Right.
On
brand, on brief, on budget.
I'll put my brand on it.
Yeah.
But I don't have the same ego attached to it as if it's my own work. I try to make sure they're happy and they want it. But when they spin out and they're, I'm like,
yeah. Well, again,
like I'm going to deliver. It's going to be good. Like I know it's going to be good, and we're just going to get it right. But it's so funny. I watch them just we get the high stress world of, and to sort of be able to not get sucked into it. Like I don't have enough in the game to get sucked into that.
Well, I mean, that's a paid gig, right? I mean, you're doing, the brand's work, or you're, steward of or shepherd of the brand. In that context, that's a different animal, right? Compared to,
but it's high stress. It's high stress
for sure. For
them, it's high stress.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like, I try to calm everyone down and just, again, be optimistic. I'm like, this is all going to work out. And I'll go in there and calmly let them know, like, we're going to get it. Tell me your concerns here. That got it. Boom. We go address them.
What are some of the commercials you've done?
I did a huge one. My first big one was this Bud Light spot. It was a Super Bowl commercial. It was with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Don Cheadle. Like, it was a hidden camera thing where we took this unknown suspecting guy and just took him through a crazy night where he ended up playing ping pong with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it was crazy, like, so hard on a production level, so hard. Yeah. It was so funny because it was, "Are you up for whatever?" It was the campaign.
I remember that campaign.
And it was, we were the first one. It was this big spot. Yeah, they ended up breaking, like, editing it into all different. They did this whole thing, but it was so funny. Like, they were casting it up into the last minute. They're casting it, and like they'd had like Minka Kelly, all these big names. We were flying by the seat of our pants on. It was so fun, like, so hard, but really exciting. And Bud Light just sacked up and went for it. Yeah, because it was real. Like, this guy did not know anything. And they were putting a lot of money into this, hoping it works out, and trusting me that it will. Yeah. So,
wow. What other brands have you worked with?
I've done a ton now. I do, I just finished a Southwest. I did a Klondike bar. I've done a Burger King. McDonald's.
Would you say commercials pay the bills?
No, I'd say Jackass pays the bills. Yeah. But no, I have a lot of irons and a lot of fires. Like, but commercials, I mean, I like doing them. Do you have, you want to hear a funny thing? Yeah. I directed the safety video for American Airlines.
No shit.
Can you imagine?
Dude.
Like, hiring.
Fun fact, you heard it here first, people. I'm not realizing.
Hiring the director of Jackass to direct your safety video. That irony is not lost on me. I thought it was so funny.
That's amazing.
So, and it's the most seen thing I've ever done, probably. Right? Like, it's in front of every flight.
Right. Oh my God. Right.
Like, no one's seen anything I've done more than that.
It's the most mass market
crazy
thing you've produced. What year was that? Is it playing right now?
Yeah, it's playing right now. It was only a few years ago.
Right. But, well, okay, that spot. So I was on a American flight, many times in the last several years. But what I noticed was that, I didn't know that you did that video. If it's the same one, I think it's the same one.
Yeah, it's the only one they did.
But Virgin gets props, right, for being the kind of the first airline to innovate the safety
video. They deserve
video.
the props for that, for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, why can't you fucking apply some creativity to this fucking video that nobody fucking watches anyway?
And I'm really proud of it. I think we did something cool. It's not like Virgin. It's not loud. It's great. Quiet.
It's very,
but it's creative and
yep. Right. So, I mean, the sort of Ruth Goldberg aspect to it. I mean, who did you work with on that? Because that was brilliant.
Ethan Tobman was the production designer on it, and he had done a couple of OK Go videos that have that whole cool thing. And so we all just sat around and came up with a bunch of ideas, and he knew a lot of little tricks.
Right.
The sound team, it started off as an idea just about acquiring the sounds from an airport. Mm-hmm. So the idea was more of a musical thing than it was a visual thing. It was all about just recording all of the aspects of airplane travel, right? And but so we incorporated those sounds into the soundtrack, but then made it really visually interesting, and they were on board with our pitch. So, but it's not comical, really.
Yeah. No, it's not. But it's it's creative, but it's classy and engaging.
It was really
which
fun.
Is what you want.
That was a hard job, but it was really fun.
So, how many commercials you do a year on average? You think?
Well, I didn't do hardly any last year because of these stupid movies. I do probably 4 or 5 a year since I started doing them, since that Bud Light thing, and that was 2013. So it hasn't been that long that I've been doing commercials.
I'm starting to understand why you don't paint anymore.
It's honestly, I do have time.
So how do you unwind? Because I mean, like, so look, we're lucky people, right? Because we love what we do. I also work from home. sometimes it's hard to shut it off. I mean, you know, I want to spend time with the kids. I want to be a good dad. I think I'm not as good as some. I'm better than probably most, but you know, like the point is that I love what I do. It's hard to shut it off sometimes. I know my fitness is taking a dive. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, what do you do to like unwind and how do you approach parenting? Like, I mean, life's crazy, just man.
Follow my wife's lead on parenting.
There you go.
No, it's funny. Like, yeah, I love being a dad. I think that's one the thing I love most.
Did you always want to be a dad? Like, did you, like when you were younger, did you say, I'm going to get married?
I was in denial that I wanted, but probably always wanted. I just was sort of in denial about it. I didn't do it till later.
Yeah.
Like the same thing.
I got married at 35.
Right. I got married I think I got married at 41 and had my kid at 43 now.
Okay. So you jumped in, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels pretty natural. I don't read books about my wife is probably more on top of things than I am about parenting.
But would you say that the kids sort of fuel your creative juices as well? I mean,
it's fun to do projects with them and to inspire them and get them to dig deeper into their creative minds. You know, I enjoyed shepherding that. And that's fulfilling in the same way that painting, like, but when I paint with them and teach, then I really get back on. I'm like, why am I not doing this more? Like, this is what I should just quit everything and just paint right now. Like, but I don't do it. I don't have a good, I really don't have a real excuse. You know, it's like, what do I do to unwind? I watch car shows on the Motor Trend channel. I'm not a car guy. I'm not. I don't care about cars. I love watching a transformation of any kind.
Right.
Like I love watching and for some reason I think I like car guys and motorcycle guys that do it so much. It's interesting to me that these guys don't come off as artists, but they really are.
100%.
You know, and I think that's just fascinating to watch, to see this rusty old thing. And like I can't tell you how I wouldn't know how to change my own oil. Yeah. To watch them take a rusty old car and turn it into this kick-ass, beautiful piece of art. And they care so much about every nut and bolt on that damn thing.
100%.
Well, I watched that knife show where they make Forged in Fire.
Okay.
I can watch that for days. I can watch the Treehouse show, the Fish Tank show.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I do. I just I watch shitty, cheap, basic cable programs. You know, like
but they're all sort of, you know, creative process shows, right?
Yeah.
It's like
my wife hates it. Like she's like, why don't we? Like, there's so much high quality stuff out here, and I just watch this.
What does she like to watch?
She says that, and she watches
HGTV
and all that bullshit.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Well, so my wife used to work at ABC, and now she's at Netflix. And it's funny because when she used to work at ABC, you know, I fucking never watch. I mean, like, you know, like I'm fucking network television. What the fuck? You know, I'm over here at Netflix. Like, you got to check out this Netflix shit. This is the bomb, you know? She's like, I don't have time for Netflix. You know, I got all the, so like now she's at Netflix. I'm like, oh, this Hulu thing is amazing. You got to, she got a Hulu. Is weird.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, you got to see these shows ABC's putting out. They're killing it. God damn.
Yeah, exactly.
They figure comedy out.
I don't know. Everybody's different. In my 30s, my 20s, I didn't give a shit about my fitness. I was just doing shit. You know, I'm a big outdoors guy. So a lot of camping, a lot of canoeing, you know, a lot of extreme shit because I was up in the Arctic. I was like doing, you know, whatever. In my 30s, I got into endurance sports. So I was doing like a lot of triathlons, a lot of marathons, stuff like that, right? But in my 40s, I became a dad. And I got serious about being an entrepreneur, right? And so my fitness just went right out the fucking window. And then you layer in the fact that, you know, I just didn't become a dad. We adopted both our kids. We also happened to, you know, move and remodel a house. And, you know, so the point is that like life got full. It just in some, you can't do it all. This bullshit about, oh, you can have it all. No, you can't have it all. Something, you have to sacrifice something. And so anyway, my fitness was like the one thing that totally fell off. But it was interesting because I was like beating myself up all the time. It's like, fuck, man, I'm just a fucking lazy, like I'm out of shape. I'm fucking dying. Every day I'm dying. You know, I'm just sitting here dying. But really what it is, it's like, because you know rationally, like, you know rationally I should be painting. But yet you don't. You're like, well, I don't really know why. And everyone's different. But I just for myself, like, because I'm a pragmatist at the end of the day. but I'm also very much a feeler. Like I kind of go by intuition or whatever. And it's like, as soon as I get the sense of like, okay, there's an opening, like, okay. And so for years, last several years, I felt like, you know, my fitness was a luxury I couldn't afford because I had the kids, I had the company, I had this and that. And now though things are settling, kids are getting older, the company's getting a little more established, and it's like, okay, now things are kind of opening up a little bit. I can kind of start investing in myself again. I mean, this podcast was an investment in myself.
The only way I work out, like I pay a trainer to come over to my house.
Yeah. Kick your ass.
I know how to do every routine. We don't, it's just that I pay him makes me do it.
You're right. The accountability. Yeah.
Just like put it on the schedule, pay, like, feel like that. That's what the only thing that works for me. I'm not in good shape, but I at least do that just to.
So were you a sports kid growing up?
I mean, well, I was, but I was I was on my bike all the fucking time. I wasn't, I come from a family of athletes. My dad was like point guard for Naval Academy. And, my brother was, went to school on a tennis scholarship. My sister was a gymnast. My dad wanted me to, I had to try everything when I was, I had to play baseball and football and whatever, basketball, but I didn't connect to any of that. It wasn't until I found riding my bike and watching Evel Knievel and imitating that
fucking shit. Evel Knievel, dude. Fun fact. So in my closet, I own a Evel Knievel costume that I keep on hand, right? Because, sometimes there's a costume party that or some shit that you got to wear. Evel Knievel, that's my guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, mine too, man. Well, I produced the Evel Knievel documentary.
You produced that. I saw that. It's fucking great.
And we got involved in that just because, look, I know Evel was probably the biggest dick that ever lived.
Yeah,
right?
He was a motherfucker.
But no one inspired me more growing up, and no one did it gnarlier. He
was an original
and better than he did. Like,
he was the original.
Like I wanted to make sure that at the end of that documentary that we like at least no one waved the fucking flag higher and brighter.
Right. Right.
Like he would just inspiring.
Did you have? Well, you probably didn't. You probably had a much cooler bike, but I actually had. I forget what year it was. 1977, maybe. I had the Evel Knievel Huffy edition.
Oh shit! No, I didn't have that. But I had this little. My first bike that I remember was probably second grade, first grade. I was in we were living in San Francisco, so it was first or second grade. I had this little. It was like a little. It was pre BMX. BMX wasn't around, then, but it was like a little mini moto bike. It had like. It had knobby tires, and
it looked like a dirt bike. It looked
like a little dirt bike, but and these kids had set up. It was right after an Evel Knievel jump. I don't know which one, but like one of those. These on ABC Sports, they would always show those fucking jumps.
I remember.
And right after that, kids would get on their bikes and go try to fucking jump curbs and shit.
I was one of them.
Somebody put a big piece of plywood up against a roadblock, so it was a ramp.
Yeah, and
pretty high. For me on my little bike, it was. 3 feet, 3.5 feet high.
Yeah.
This board going up. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking do it. And I rode up and I got scared right at the end and kind of hooked it to the right and just plowed right into the curb and like ate shit. But I got back up. I'm like, it didn't hurt that bad.
Right.
And I was hooked ever since. Like, yeah. So, and then BMX kind of kicked in like in the, I'd say 77, 78. I started getting really into BMX.
For those of us growing up where I grew up, our bikes were freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I probably rode, I don't know how many miles, but we would ride to I knew where what's fun about like having a skateboard or bike as your mode of transportation too, is you know every little curb cut and the smooth pavements over here. Like when I skated in college, when I would use it as transportation a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew, there's a fun little curb that's got a metal pipe on it over here. And you just know, you're so aware of everything.
Yep.
And you go out of your way to find these certain things. You know the line. And same with, I used to ride my bike nonstop. We knew where every dirt jump was in the whole city.
Yep.
I'd ride down to Rockville BMX. I'd ride to the record store. We were just living on our bikes.
It's
no helmets.
Right, of course. Yeah. So I remember one year, maybe 1982 or something. And, I come from a reasonably small town, and like the largest intersection was Central Avenue and Willow Creek Road. And
is this in Gary?
No, this is in Portage, Indiana. So I was born in Gary, Indiana. I grew up about 15 miles east in a town called Portage, right on the coast of Lake Michigan, right? So we were all working class, like all of our dads were, and, a few of our dads took the South Shore train into Chicago because, they had some white collar job. But most of our dads were working class guys that worked in the steel mills in Gary, right? And so latchkey kid, whatever. And so our bikes were everything, right? And, we were always just getting into bullshit. But one day, I don't know why, we were just like, let's cut across. So this major intersection, right? And it was probably 4 lanes, on either boulevard. So we'll wait for the light to turn green and we'll shoot across diagonally and see if, we can make it across without getting hit. Right. Yeah. So, so we do this for, a while until we think things are getting too hot and whatever. And we take off. So I show up home, a couple hours later, and our neighbor, Peggy, was working, was running errands or whatever, and saw us doing this. Of course, she calls my mom and rats me out, No, but I mean, the adventures, right? The trails, the shortcuts, the jumps, we'd be gone for hours.
Yeah, gone for hours.
Miles and miles.
Your neighborhood so much better than
100%. And the bike shop, right? The bike shop becomes the hub.
Rockville BMX was so important to my development and having that little community,
I mean, you would go Portage Cyclery.
That's why I met Spike. I met Spike Jones because he got a job at Rockville BMX when he was 13 or something.
Wow.
And I was 15, I think.
Yeah, it's I had a Schwinn came out with a Schwinn Aero.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And they was teardrop kind of tubing, 4130 chromoly. They only made so many, but that was just, I'd love to know where that fucking bike is, right? Well, actually, it's funny because there was this on Facebook, there was this resurgence of all my old boys, because, some of these guys are, of course, reminiscing and roaming. Someone that never left town, you know what I mean? I left, decades ago, but some of these guys are still back there and they, collect these bikes and they restore these bikes. And I got a call a while back or an email on Facebook. Somebody would say, "Hey man, do you still have that Aero? I'll buy it from you."
Right. It's man. I left when I moved out here. I didn't take my Haro, and my parents moved and they just fucking they just got rid of it.
Yeah. It's what?
This is such a dope bike.
Well, I had an opportunity there was a Schwinn Sting, right? Because that was the primary, bike for Schwinn. I don't even know how this came up, but somebody had the Schwinn Sting with all of the same parts that I had on my Aero. The only thing different was the frame, and I bought it. So it's actually at my parent. I bought it when I was 30. Right, right. It's just so it's at my parents' house right now.
Get it out of here, man! You got
I know. I want to have it.
Sun coming up.
I know, right? Totally.
Yeah, it's funny. Matt Hoffman just sent my kids 2 bikes.
So. Oh, that's so awesome.
So rad.
That's so fucking great. Wow, man. Jeff Tremaine, you are a fucking awesome dude.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and hanging out.
This is awesome.
Yeah, well, before we go, I'd have to say, some people remember the first time they heard the Beatles or the first time they Kennedy got shot or whatever. I remember exactly where I was the first time I ever saw Jackass, and it was me and my boys were like, "This is genius, genius."
I don't know if I'd call it that, but it's something.
It's something. Well, hey, it's paying the bills, right?
It's paying the bills, man. Right. Unreal.
Hey, man. Well, great seeing you. Good luck on the tour with
thanks,
press junket K-Rock tomorrow.
Yep.
How long are you on tomorrow? Do you know?
Oh, actually, it's not even tomorrow. It's the next day. It's Friday. So I don't know.
All right.
I just go where they tell me.
It's a totally random question. I kind of know a little bit about how movies worked in the traditional way in terms of, producers and directors getting paid. With Netflix, what is that business model for you?
For Netflix, it was interesting. So, with Jackass and all the other, movies I've done that are theatrical, you have a back end component that can be zero, or if it does well, but with Netflix, there is no back end, right? So it was strange because I did have a deal and then had a little component of extra money that came, but it was pre-factored in. Like now, no matter what happens,
negotiated
if
up
it's
front.
the biggest hit of all time, I've already
right.
My money's done. Like
It's a flat kind of fee,
which I'm cool with. Like, whatever.
No,
it's fine.
interesting.
But it definitely. I didn't think The Dirt would be a big theatrical movie anyway.
Yeah.
I did, in my head it wouldn't. But then when Bohemian Rhapsody came out and just blew the doors off, I'm like, holy shit, maybe this movie should have been theatrical, Like people really like these biopics.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
no,
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, I tell you what, it's a great film. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today, chopping it up.
All right, man.
And be well.